Hey, and welcome back to After the Run. This week we're going to talk about accountability. Last week we rebooted this podcast, video podcast, with a weekly challenge, and the challenge is accountability, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But first, let's recap what got us here. In 2018, when I was 40 years old, I hit an all-time high of 306 pounds. My wife had an intervention of sorts. We decided that I needed to make some changes in my life. I worked really hard, and over a year, I lost 100 pounds. The year after that, I worked even harder, got in better shape, ran a double marathon of 52 miles, and felt really great. But COVID, life changes, and just the pressures of being a middle-aged man led to a lot of that weight gaining back. By January 1st, 2025, I'd gotten all the way back up to 290. And so I started over this yo-yo process of getting healthy. And last year I was able to lose 35 pounds. But my life's been crazy recently, and so I gained all the way back up to 280. And that's where I was last week when I started season 2 of After the Run. Now, just a little bit about me before we get into the weekly challenge. I'm a father of 4 kids aged 12 to 20. I'm a school teacher, a professor in teacher education. I have a side hustle where I'm an Amazon influencer and YouTuber of multiple channels. I'm an author of 4 books. I have done 3 TED Talks. And I volunteer considerable time each week to my church and to my community. So I guess you could say that I keep busy. Last week was an exciting week. We got some land under contract for some acreage that we're purchasing. My son PR'd in his track meet in the discus. My daughter had a tennis match where her confidence went up. And my other daughter is going on a big dance date tomorrow. So a lot's going on. On top of that, it was finals for me at the university. And I look forward to this all year because I give a last lecture where I teach lessons of life, patterned after Randy Pausch's last lecture. It's incredibly exciting for me and I love it, but it's also emotionally draining. Plus now I'm doing tons of grading and responding to students' questions. It's just a busy time. So that gets us to this week's challenge. Last week, in the first episode of season 2, I explained that the format that I want to take on this podcast is that each week I'll do a challenge that I set the week before. I'll report on that challenge, and then at the end of the episode, I'll set a new challenge for next week. The challenge this week was accountability, and it had 3 parts to it. The first part was to put on my calendar, my Google Calendar, times during the week that I would exercise for the foreseeable future. Part 2 was to find or re-find my spreadsheet where I record my daily metrics for a bunch of different things and to populate that for at least this week, but hopefully even more going back. And part 3 in accountability was simply to publish video number 2. That's this video. So if I publish it, I did it. So here's how I did. With part 1, simply putting something on the calendar, it actually did take me a couple days to do that. But by the end of the weekend, I had pulled out my Google Calendar. I set a recurring event. I did research to see when the sun comes up. And then on my first scheduled day, I didn't go running at that time. But it's not because I wasn't prepared. I did have a notification go off. I was ready to go running. And then I realized that the time the sun comes up and the times that my kids leave for school overlapped. I would have been out on my run when they left. And it's important to me to be there when my kids wake up and come upstairs each morning and get ready for school. So I delayed my start time, but I did go running. And I ran not only every time I was scheduled to run this week, which was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but I got a bonus run in because my daughter wanted to go with me yesterday on Thursday. So I actually went running 4 times in a week, which is probably the most times I've ran so far this year, maybe not the most miles. There's something amazing when you put something on the calendar and you actually use your calendar. That accountability makes a difference. And because of that, I ran, I think 3 miles, 2 miles, 3 miles, 2 miles, 4 miles, or something like that. For the total week, and I'll put these stats at the end of this episode, I ran at least 10 miles. And for somebody that's started the week at 280 pounds, I think that's pretty good. Now, part two was a little harder for me. That was finding the spreadsheet that I used last year, and I actually set it up for this year, so I had populated it for all 365 days this year. But there are a lot of things that you can fill out on that spreadsheet. And I'll show you a copy of that spreadsheet at the end of this episode so you can kind of see what metrics I'm tracking. I procrastinated that one. I actually didn't post the spreadsheet till this morning. And quite honestly, I might not have even published it this morning if there wasn't that accountability of telling you I was going to do it and knowing that I was going to film this second video, or part 3 of my accountability challenge today. And so because of that, this morning I did wake up, I found the spreadsheet, I marked in the things that I could easily find access because it's recorded automatically on my watch. That's my miles or my sleep time. I could check the box on the days I did cardio. But there's still a lot that I haven't filled out. So I'll have to show you what that process is like either today or sometime in the near future. Now, did that work? I just want to note that last week I invited you guys in the comments to post what you were working on. I invited you to join me on this health journey. And again, it's mostly for me. I want some accountability, and clearly it made a difference this first week just knowing that I'd be filming again and reporting certain things. If you want that same kind of accountability, I offered to let you make a comment. However, I didn't respond to any comments yet. And the biggest reason for that is because it does take some time and I am incredibly busy. So I have to block out time. Now I've blocked out Friday mornings to go on a long run, to film this episode, and to do a little bit of editing so I can publish it. After seeing the overwhelming response to episode 1, I think I want to include in part of my Friday morning ritual responding to comments, and I like to do that via video. This is one thing that I've discovered as a professor has made a profound difference in the relationship that I have with my students. You see, I have over 100 students each semester, and I give them multiple assignments through the week. And at the end of each assignment, I ask them to reflect on what they learned and then to ask a question. Well, I respond to 2 questions a week per student via video response, which means I'm making multiple 100 videos every week talking to my students. And they truly appreciate it. Whether they're face-to-face students or online students, both have reported that they feel better connected to the class and to me, that somebody cares about what they're saying. And so I looked at the stats for episode 1 of season 2 on this podcast, and I was surprised to see that the total hours of watch time this week are very similar to the amount of hours that my students see me in class or on video. So while this week was mostly about accountability on my health goals, I now realize that I feel a little bit of accountability to you guys, and I want to make sure that I answer as many questions as I can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up this segment of the video. I'm going to go home to my studio, open up the statistics, and I'll show you my results for the week. Did I lose weight? How much? What made the biggest difference? And then I'm going to open up the comment section and respond to as many comments as I can. So let's move over to the studio. All right, so here we are in the studio, and I have some slides to recap kind of what I did this week, what were the results, and what are we going to do next week. So let's dig right into that. So just to recap, the accountability was the challenge this week, and that consisted of scheduling cardio workouts on my actual calendar, filling out my health spreadsheet, and then publishing this video. So did we do these things? Yes. Here's part of my calendar. You see that in the morning on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I scheduled it. I had to bump it a little bit as I described earlier because of my kids' morning routine, but we did that. Check. Yay! All right, next we found the spreadsheet. This is a spreadsheet that I've used in the past. You see that there's a bunch of things that I haven't been doing yet, but I at least started keeping track now of my weight on the days I weigh in, how many miles I've run, and my pace. And then let me just quickly describe these. We'll get into these more in the future. If I did cardio, I check this column. If I went to the gym, I check this column. If my watch says that I slept well, meaning I slept long enough and it was good sleep, I check that. And you see I did really well on that this week. We'll talk about that more in a minute. Then intermittent fasting, if I did that, then I check that box. If I didn't have any snacks, so just only meals,
I would do that. And I probably did that a few times this week, but I wasn't keeping track of it. So I need to do that. Same with no sugar, no added sugar. Obviously, sugar's in a lot of things, but I want natural sugar more than added sugar. So there's some check boxes there. So now that I have this up and running, I'm going to start using it, and hopefully that will help me improve my health. Um, Also, I have another tab where it just totals it up. So you saw that I ran 11 miles this week, so I was curious about that, and my pace was right around a 12-minute mile. It's good to have a baseline data, right? So hopefully in the future that will drop, that I'll have more miles and more run time, but a faster pace. So that's the goal. And then finally, publish video number 2. I assume that I did that if you're watching this video. So I did the slides, I did everything, we're there. Now, here's the results from my phone as far as a few different things. You'll see, so last Friday I was at 280.8, and this Friday I'm at 270.6, so I lost 10.2 pounds. Not too shabby. However, I put this last one in over here because I wanted you to see, for the most of the year I've been right here at 265 where I started the year, but it's just been the last few weeks where I gained a lot of weight. When you gain weight really fast, you can lose weight really fast because a lot of that is inflammation, bloating, water weight. And so it's not surprising that that first day I dropped 4 or 5 pounds just because I was getting back on track, right? Holidays led to some of this, stress led to some of this. We talked about that in the episode last week. But I do like seeing here just the consistent every day by keeping track of things, by holding to a schedule. It seemed to make a difference on the scale. And then I have some of the metrics here, and we'll talk about these more in future weeks, but I just kind of wanted to show you some of that baseline data. All right. I wanted to go through some comments because one of the best parts of this week was reading the comments that you had. And you see here a lot of encouragement here. Eliza 295, you've got this. Thanks, Eliza. Um, uh, Marlies, see, I don't know how to say that. Sizu, I've been on my journey almost 3 years, 50 pounds lost. So I've replied now in text to all of these, but like I'm curious what they did, right? And so way to go, Marlies. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Revelation Rays, congrats on your decision. Can't wait. Thanks. Like, this is so cool that people are hopping on just to encourage. Um, Antioxidant, starting over as a drag, but you've been here before, so you kind of know it works. And that's true, but that doesn't mean it's easy. It's really hard. So I appreciate the encouragement. A few other comments I want to show you here. Hey, I'm in a similar boat myself, says Katka. 8490. My husband and I lost a lot of weight, gained it back, then stress and babies and different things, and now we're back on it. So way to go, Katka. I'm excited. I hope that we can keep posting back and forth and keeping up with each other. This week's challenge was accountability, and I want to help you just like I want you guys to help me. And so I love that we're starting a little community here. Carnivore diet. A few people talked about carnivore, so we'll talk about that more in a minute. And then Nona, IH5LK. I started working on moving my weight down, so it'll be fun to watch your journey. Watching from Sweden, super cool. Obviously, as a Christensen, I'm Scandinavian, or at least my ancestors are. So I love that this is going around the world. This isn't just a local thing, but we can encourage each other wherever we're at. So I thought that was super, super cool. Now, here's some of the stuff. There were some skeptics. I'll read you this one. If you were legitimately 200 pounds, Ivan Cliff asks, and 10%, you must have been jacked. That's elite. It'll be easy for you to get back. Now, I don't know how that would be easy to get back, just even if you were elite. I have tons of friends who are professional athletes, and they struggle with weight even more than I do. Former NFL players or NBA players, it's hard to be healthy. And so just because you're really disciplined at one stage in your life doesn't mean it's going to be easy for forever. So I don't understand that comment there, but in my comment back to him, I asked him to clarify that. So hopefully he'll come in and do that. Was I estimating? And what I said to him was I used my bath scale. That's what I did. And what I know is it showed progress. It might not have been exact. I didn't go get some official weight. Someone else, BD Clower, asked how much did I weigh. I did find, I just did a quick search and I found some pictures of me at 100 pounds lost. This is when I was at 17%, so I'll show you. This is at 17%. So I dropped another 5-6% after this. So I wasn't super jacked. But definitely better than I am now, right? And so I like to have progress and growth, and obviously I want to get back to this. And I was actually in much better shape. Almost I was thinking about a six pack here. I actually got a six pack before I started putting weight back on. So um, you know, I if you want to see some of those videos, go back in the archives. Here's a bunch about the carnivore, another thing. A lot of people weighed in on this, and I thought this was really interesting. So Greg on the go says you can't out exercise a poor diet. I definitely believe that. This is one of the hardest things for me. It's the carbs. I also agree there. And he says go on a carnivore diet, meat and eggs. Now I have a challenge with this, and Michael Johnson also says, was he also saying carnivore? If you want to be healthy the rest of your life, you need to be. Oh no, this was contrary to this, saying you shouldn't go on a carnivore. So we have a little bit of back and forth. Um, Kim on a whim says I'm addicted and should go to rehab. I'm not sure if that was serious or not. Is there rehab for food? I struggle with food. And then Philatella says retired principal and food addict. We're there. I'm an educator. And it's hard. Once you forget about, the different stuff, forget about white flour sweets, candy, deep fried food. I know I should do that. Easier said than done. And so I hope that part of this journey is sharing ideas on how to get over some of those things, because that is a really, real hard part for me. I started this week with focusing on a little bit more cardio because that's something I can control. Cravings are a lot harder for me than getting out the door to go for a run. So let's go back to Michael Johnson's here. If you want to be a healthy weight the rest of your life, be eating all foods. Ignore people who tell you to avoid certain foods. So a few people have talked about carnivore diet. I tried that, but it's hard for me because I have 4 kids. I want to eat the same thing they're eating. I want us all to eat healthy. Um, but within, you know, um, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I still want to eat fun foods every once in a while. Like I don't want to be on this restrictive thing all my life. And if I have to, I'll get there. My wife does a much better job than of this than I do, and she's healthier than I am. So I know it works. It's just really, really hard for me. He says go online and look up the. He basically says count calories, and if you watch any of my old videos, I'm really anti counting calories just because it takes so much time and effort, and it takes over your life, or at least that was my experience with it. I hated it, and so I'm trying to look for better ways, but if I have to try this again, I will. So I appreciate, Michael, your suggestion here. I just know that it's hard for me. A few last things. I have friends go yo 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 yim. I have friends who still won't listen and do it. You guys are always so fanatic and extreme. I don't know if he's talking to me or other people in the comments. You can't keep this up forever, meaning going extreme in dieting and counting calories and stuff. Uh, I'm not trying to be extreme. I'm trying to make some small changes that will make a difference in my life long term. So I appreciate the sentiment here, and for the most part, agree with it. But I still want to do something, and so that's why I'm doing these different challenges. I think that's the end of my comments. I wanted to share with you my challenge for next week and invite you to join me if you'd like to. This is going to be different from maybe what you're expecting, but you'll notice back when I pulled up my spreadsheet earlier that I had really good sleep this week. I also lost 10 pounds this week, so I was wondering about kind of a correlation there. And so my challenge for this next week is to actually do some research, go over my own data for the last few months or few years and see, like normally I eat worse on the weekend. Do I have worse sleep on the weekend? I want to see if my data shows that. And just do some research in general on the impact of diet on sleep, if there are certain things that I can and should be doing. If I want to have a splurge day, how can I still sleep well that night? And so I want to do some research, and in next week's video, as I'm out on the trail, I'll share with you what I've learned as well as my results, just like I did this week. I'm really looking forward to that. Now, those of you who tuned in for episode 2 this week, I'd love to know how you're doing on your health journey. Do you have any more questions for me about how things went this week with setting up accountability measures? Do you have any thoughts or suggestions as far as sleep and research on sleep goes? I'd love to know what you have to contribute to this. This is a journey that I think we can go on together, Again, I'm doing it mostly for me, but I was so happy to see people join in, put comments in. Uh, this is something that I think we can support each other, and I think that's cool. All right, so that's all. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you again next Friday.